So in this video, this dated top from my neighbor became my victim. Top is very lightweight, soft silk fabric I think, and definitely not something I would ever wear, so yeah. It had shoulder pads that I cut out and kept to maybe use for later projects, and it also had these sparkly decorative buttons that I seam ripped too. Then I cut the whole thing up at the seams to see how much fabric I had, and these were all the pieces that I got out of it. I laid down the pattern to see how much fabric I will need, but before I cut it out, I first took a piece of fabric from this pile of excess fabric and messed up projects, and I created a mock-up first. As you can see, it did fit me nicely enough. I would maybe make it a bit longer next time, but in general I liked how it looked, so I left it like that. I cut out pattern 3 times out of interfacing, lining and shell fabric. I ironed the facing on the back of the shell fabric, and these were all the pieces that I got. Next step was to sew it together. So first I sewed up the cup pieces, then I connected them to the center side pieces, and then I sewed all the vertical seams. Then with right size kissing, I sewed the back seam on both sides. And when it was done, I folded the seam allowance to the lining, and I sewed it down, going as close to the shell as I could. Then I pinned the 2 sides together at all the seams, just so they wouldn't move, and it was time to apply the bias tape. You just want to make sure that the strip is long enough to bind both the top and bottom of the corset. And to create mine, I used this bias tape maker. Then with the right size facing, I sewed the bias to the top and I cut the seam allowance short like this. Then I folded in the end of the strip so that I would end up with a clean edge, and I folded the bias down once, that bit that I pre-ironed, and then again like this, hiding all the ugly edges. It's not very visible, but here I drew 3 lines to indicate where my boning and eyelets would go. And the first line from the right is for the boning, next one is for eyelets, and the third one for boning again. I also marked at both sides of every seam except the one that went around the boobs. So here is the cheap plastic boning that I ordered, and as you can see it's very thin, and I think you're supposed to sew this into the top or whatever you're making, but I wasn't so sure about doing that, and honestly I thought that even this thinner zip tie was better than that, but at the end I decided to instead use this much thicker zip tie, and I think it worked pretty good. So here I am inserting the zip ties into the channels, and you will see me insert it into the middle too, but since the top was already quite structured and I wanted it to be more comfortable, I later decided to pull that center front zip tie out. Then I applied the bias tape on the bottom of the top. Once done, I used this tool that I am not quite sure what it's for really, to mark where my eyelets would be. And this is how they looked afterwards. And as a last thing, I made one long strip to tie the top with, and it was done. I am so happy how this one turned out, and since the zip ties are only at sides and at the back, it is very comfortable too. If you guys like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and I will see you next week. Bye!